Alright, I am excited for this one. Today's Toy Spot, we're going to be looking at the DC Universe Wave 9 figures. This is the Camo Wave, and this is Wildcat. I will say Green Arrow, I think, is the figure to get to this set. As a personal favorite of mine, for one reason or another, Wildcat really is the figure that I wanted to get from this set. This is also one of the only times on the review spot here that I'm actually going to show you both variants, because I'm not actually going to open up both figures. There's outcry going on right now, I can tell, but I'm not actually going to review both figures. The only reason for it is really as a side problem, or not really a problem, but a side issue that I have with these figures. Wildcat, again, is one of my favorite figures that I want to get from this set. There was two variants. And generally, practice with a variant is the fact that for the most part, let's face facts, for the most part, it usually is the exact same figure mold. They might tweak it ever so slightly. Good examples in the past have been the Captain Atom, which, as you'll know, was an exact copy to the, well, both figures were the exact same mold, and all they did was tweak the paint job. Tweaked paint jobs really, in my opinion, are fine, and I have very little problem with it. Then you'll take other figures like the Artemis and Wonder Woman, where Artemis, for the most part, used Wonder Woman's body sculpt, but they added more to it. They gave her a different head sculpt, they gave her different feet, and for the most part, you can look at it as a different figure. The same thing with the Terry McGinnis Unmasked Batman Beyond and the Batman Beyond. Aside from the head, it is the exact same figure. Here's my problem, though, with these guys right here. If we look, and I'll try to pan in here so you guys can actually see. If you look at both figures, what you're essentially getting, as I was touching on earlier, what you're essentially getting, you're getting the exact same figure. And by exact same, I literally mean it's the exact same figure. It has the same face. I don't know if the camera's going to get it. It's got the exact same face. It's got the same open strapped cowl. It's got the same gloves. Everything about it is the exact same. The only difference is, though, that you have a purple colored Wildcat versus a black colored Wildcat. That's it, though. The problem that I have with this set are these two figures. For what Wildcat is, at least to me, I think of him lately with the Justice League, the Brave and the Bold. I think of Wildcat as a character that is slowly moving up the ranks as a fan favorite figure, or fan favorite character. I really don't know why they couldn't have actually changed slightly the two Wildcats here to make it really worth any collector wanting to pick up. I think really as a prime opportunity, and I'll move the black one out of the way for a second. It's a missed opportunity because really the purple Wildcat could have very well had closed straps. Or actually no, the purple one could have actually had open straps, looked exactly like what you see here, kept everything different about him. And then what they could have done, which I'll show you when I get this figure opened up, with the black version, they could have actually had the cowl completely strapped shut. So the straps are going around his chin. They could have actually changed up his gloves, or they could have kept these gloves the same, and they could have actually had, you know, a couple of the straps coming loose from his gloves. So perhaps this is Wildcat before he goes into battle. This is Wildcat afterwards with the open straps, or the open cowl, the straps coming down loose from his gloves. They could have done something different, but instead what they've given us is, again, the exact same figure. And because of that, it's a bit disappointing, and really for that reason, I know I've talked a long time about this, but for that reason, I'm not really going to open both figures, because really, if when you see the review of, and this is the guy I'm going to review here, but when you see the review on this figure, you're essentially going to be seeing the review on both figures, because there's nothing different about them. Nothing different. So having said that, I'll show you just one more time the purple variant of Wildcat. And also, this is one of these strange cases, and if you want to go do this after the review, but if you check on eBay, this is where it's strange. If you check on eBay, according to the back of the package, the black version of Wildcat is the regular character, or the regular figure. The purple, however, seems to be what is the variant of this set. The strange part is, though, for every 10 Wildcats that you see purple on eBay, you might be lucky enough to see one of the black Wildcat. This figure is not expensive like, say, the Gentleman Ghost, but in the way of rarity, the black is very hard to find, and for that reason, you usually tend to spend a little bit more of this guy on eBay. Again, very strange that this guy seems to be the standard version. This guy is the variant. So there's the two figures. What I'll do is I'll move the purple out of the way. Man, I've already talked too long in this video. But there we have the packaging on the back. Just quickly, aside from the figures in this wave, the biography says Ted Grant was a heavyweight boxing champion in the 1930s. He became a fugitive when mobsters framed him for the murder in the ring. Ted donned a black costume and, adopting the name Wildcat, used his combat skills to beat a confession out of the man who framed him. Wildcat decided to remain in costume and focused his attention on a mob-related crime. In his civilian identity, Ted Grant has operated a gym and trained Batman, Black Canary, and Catwoman in hand-to-hand combat arts. And there we have an older version of Wildcat there. Statistics: first appearance, Sensation Comics #1, 1942. Real name Ted Grant. Occupation professional boxer. Gym owner, adventurer. Base of operations New York. Special abilities: superior combat skills, particularly in their area of boxing, slowed aging, heightened stamina, and agility. A very long package review, I do apologize, but what we'll do, we'll get this guy opened up, we will have a better look at Wildcat. So stay tuned, guys, there is still more to come. Wow, I mean, that was a long package and review. We'll try to keep the figure end of it, although the figure is much more interesting than the package. We'll try to keep it a little more compact, so you're not going to hear me talking for the next 10 minutes. Before we actually look at the figure, I'm really looking forward to getting this figure looked at. We're going to actually look at the figure piece. Now, unfortunately, being that the figure has two variants, again, the exact same figure, would have been nice at least if they had given... Oh, knock him over. It would have been nice that at least if they had given us figures so close to one another, they could have given us the stand. The stand of... the figure stand. The figure stand does, however, come with Green Arrow. Now, the figure piece that comes with Wildcat is the most predominant and most needed piece of Chemo. So at least if they had given him the stand for Chemo, you would have at least had two stands. So really, this guy, if you ask me, should have went with Green Arrow. At any rate, though, a really nice upper torso of Chemo. And so, time for checklist. What you're going to do is you're going to take the upper torso of Chemo here, and we're going to find the other three pieces that I've assembled, and we're going to snap the two together. And do this off camera here for a second. And what you have is an extremely tall Chemo. which of course I'll get into in more its entirety when I have camo fully assembled. But a very neat looking figure so far. Let's move him out of the way and let's look at Wildcat. A couple of people have asked me, Spot, what's your favorite DC Universe figures? I can tell you that one of them, and he's very high up on the list, is this guy right here. Yes, he doesn't have a lot in the way of paint. He doesn't really have a lot in the way of accessories. In fact, he has no accessories. And he really has nothing in the way of sculpt aside from his cowl and the additional sculpt in his gloves. But there's just something about Wildcat that this guy digs. I really, really like this figure. The head, I think, really is what sells it for me on this guy. And going back to what I said in the very long package end of this review, you'll see that he's got an unstrapped cowl. As you can see, it's completely opened up. Surely for the sake of having two variants and something where you would want the collectors to actually want to invest in getting both, they should have done something slightly different. Like what I suggested, they could have had this completely shut, his cowl, and then have standard gloves. The other purple one could have had the open cowl that you see here, and then a couple of straps coming from his wrists here. Just enough that at least I personally would have then said, oh, okay, that's different enough, I'll pick up both figures. Now, he's not completely black, as you can see. They've put a bit of a wash over some areas on his body. It's not enough to detract from the fact that he is black. I mean, certainly it's a black enough figure, because sometimes I know with when they put washes on figures, it then makes the figure less black and more of a darker gray. And some areas they've gone a little more generous with on the additional coloring. Like on the one side of the leg here, you'll see it's a lot lighter. The other leg, it's not as much. And then as well as the additional sculpt in the sleeves, they've also sculpted new feet on this guy. They've given him more of claws, which is accurate to how he looks in the comics. But I really like this figure. The face is one of my favorites. And this is one of my favorite DC Universe figures, easily one of my favorites. In the way of his articulation, he has the articulated head, he has the ball-jointed shoulders, the swivel bicep, you can bend at the elbow, you can rotate the hand, so you can actually have him in his, he's ready to box. You can swivel at the bicep, or swivel at the waist, bend at the torso, you bend the legs in and out, back and forth, you can rotate the thigh. You can bend at the knee, which unfortunately is a little loose on this figure, and you can finally bend at the foot. So if anyone says to me, well, what figures would you recommend that I get for a DC Universe figure? One of the ones near the top of the list for me, I would say definitely pick up Wildcat. For that reason, Wildcat, I'm going to give a 9 to, possibly even an 8.5. You know what? I'll trim it down a bit. I'll give this guy an 8.5, but he is a gorgeous figure to pick up. He is a gorgeous figure. Again, he's a little more expensive on eBay, unfortunately, than the purple version. I would say personally, as a preference to me at least, I would say if you can find it, get the black. If you can't find it, get the purple. But the black really is the one for me that I would say it's worth picking up. So an 8.5 to Wildcat, and that was a Toy Spot. Today we were looking at the DC Universe Wave 9 figures. Today we were looking at Wildcat, still one of my favorite DC Universe figures. And I'll see you guys next time. Boy!